I want to talk about respecting the boundaries of others. Now, this is something that most people have a big problem with. The classic one is no means no. When someone says no, when a woman says no, I'm not interested in having sex with you, no means no. That's a boundary. And if you try to force yourself on that person, that is obviously wrong. But that's an extreme case of something that most people do all the time, and that is when somebody says, I don't want to talk about it right now, we tend to push through. We insist, no, we need to talk about it now. They say, no, I don't want to talk about it now, and they leave the room, and we follow them around the house. And they go into the bathroom and lock the door, and we bang on the door and scream at them and insist that they've got to talk about it now, even though it's actually not necessary to talk about it now. That's the interesting thing about people, is that we want what we want when we want it. So if we're in a fight with somebody, if we're having a disagreement and we want resolution, we want closure. Usually what we want is for them to admit that they're wrong and we're right. And if they won't do it, and if they say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it now," then this is infuriating to us, or very anxiety provoking to us, because we tend to want closure. We tend to not like to have things unresolved, and outcomes floating out there in the ozone. But that's the way life is. You don't always get things resolved or decided on your timetable. You need to be patient, and you need to be flexible, and you need to accept the fact that no, we don't have to resolve this fight we got into right now. We can talk about it later. We can talk about it after dinner. We can talk about it over the weekend. It's not going to go away. It's not life and death. We can still be nice to each other and like each other and love each other, and just agree that we have a disagreement we need to resolve at a time when cooler heads will prevail, when we've had a chance to think about it, and not say things that we may not mean, and not yell and scream and attack. It's always best to disengage if you're fighting with each other and yelling at each other and really not listening, or really effectively communicating with each other. It's much better to go to your separate corners and come back later when both of you have had a chance to calm down, think about it, and perhaps come at it with a new perspective. So when someone says, no, I don't want to do this or that, you need to say, okay. All right, that's it. And even whether you like it or not, suck it up, accept it. Accept it and respect the boundary. And, you may feel uncomfortable. And that's what you need to do. You need to be uncomfortable and then look at that discomfort and then talk yourself out of it. Just again, by telling yourself that this is not critical that we address this. This is not critical that I push through the boundary. See, because you create a bigger problem when you do that. If somebody sets a boundary and says, "I don't want to talk about that now," or "I don't want to do that," "I don't want to go there," I don't want you here doing this or that. If you push through because it's what you want, and you don't care whether they want it or not, and you push through, you're now creating a new problem. And the new problem is disrespecting the boundary. The new problem is not maintaining the boundary, not accepting the boundary, not respecting the person or the boundary. So what you're doing now is you're making that person angry on two counts. First, they're angry from whatever you did in the first place. Now they're angry because you're not respecting them, you're harassing them, you're bullying them. This is wrong, this is a mistake, and it compounds the problem. It compounds their resistance to liking you or loving you. If your marriage is on the rocks and you're not respecting boundaries, you're just digging yourself a bigger hole. Okay, so when you say no means no to somebody, you want them to respect it. So when they say no, you need to respect it. It always comes down to the golden rule. Treat others as you wish to be treated. There should be no double standards. There should be no double standards.